All right, so Sharm El Sheikh. I know you're probably thinking, okay, another beach vacation. But hold on, we dug deep. And
Yeah.
from what we found in all these YouTube videos, travel guides, and even this one person's blog,
Sounds thorough.
this place, this Egyptian gem, it seems to be so much more
It really
than
does.
just like your typical beach resort. I'm talking history, adventure, maybe even a little bit of spirituality.
You hit the nail on the head. What fascinates me, is how Sharm El Sheikh went from like this sleepy Bedouin village,
Really?
yeah, just a quiet little village, to like a global hotspot,
Yeah.
and all in just a few decades. It's crazy. It's become like a magnet, for divers, history buffs, you name it. It seems like everyone wants a piece of Sharm El Sheikh.
That's wild. I mean, looking at where it's located, right at the tip of the Sinai Peninsula.
Talk about strategic real estate.
Exactly. You wouldn't think it was ever a sleepy village, that's for sure. It must have been quite a shift back in 79
Yep.
when it went back to Egypt from Israel.
Absolutely. That handover was huge, really shaped the whole region. And that location, like you said,
Yeah.
right where the Red Sea meets the Sinai Desert,
Right.
that's what makes it so unique, so appealing.
Okay, speaking of the Red Sea, those underwater shots in some of the videos, just breathtaking. You can see why they call it,
A diver's paradise?
yeah, a diver's paradise.
The biodiversity there, it's off the charts. We're talking world-class dive sites like
Wow.
Ras Mohammed National Park
I saw it.
with those famous, what are they called? Shark and Yolanda reefs?
Yeah, Shark and Yolanda, I remember.
There's something there for literally every level of diver,
Yeah.
from beginner
Oh,
to
yeah.
like total expert.
And I read that some people even call the blue hole, the one there,
You glue hole.
the Egyptian Caribbean.
Itchy. Right.
I know. That alone makes me want to like grab a snorkel and jump right in.
Yeah.
And then there's the shipwreck,
Okay, SS Thistlegorn.
the SS Thistlegorm, right? A World War II freighter, and now it's like a thriving underwater city.
It's amazing. History turns into a home for all this marine life.
That's just wild. But wait, there's a catch, right?
Well, nothing lasts forever, does it? One source said, get this, in like 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah. That shipwreck, they said it might be totally unrecognizable because the sea, it just wears things down.
Oh, wow.
Makes you think, doesn't it? About how we
Yeah.
balance letting people see these amazing things
Mhm.
with protecting them for the future. What if future generations can't even experience them,
It's like almost makes it more special knowing it's changing.
We got to savor it while you can.
Right, exactly. But Sharm El Sheikh isn't just about the underwater stuff, is it? There's a whole desert to explore, too. Those dune buggies in the videos
Oh, yeah, ripping across the sand.
look like a blast.
Sharm's got it all,
Yeah.
The diving, the desert, it's a perfect combo. And dune buggies, that's just one way to see it.
Yeah.
You could hop on a quad bike if you want to go even faster. Or, if you're feeling adventurous, go old school. Do a camel trek.
Oh, you know what? The camel trek, that's kind of calling to me. There's something so, I don't know, so timeless about experiencing the desert that way. And plus, I was reading that some of those treks, you get to connect with the Bedouin culture.
Really connect.
Yeah, like firsthand.
It's not just a ride, it's a whole way of life.
Exactly. Okay, and speaking of cultural experiences, we got to talk about the old market, really?
Oh, you mean the heart of Sharm?
I guess so. It seems like the place to be, for that real local energy, haggling for souvenirs
That's part of the fun.
and just soaking it all in.
Absolutely.
One traveler, they even recommended bringing back some authentic Egyptian tea.
Oh, nice. What kind of tea?
Well, they said it's kind of like English breakfast tea, but with a little fruity twist, apparently.
I'm intrigued.
Right. But, beyond souvenirs and tea, I got to ask about the food.
Oh, yeah. You got to venture out, go beyond the resort buffets. So many sources raved about the local cuisine.
Like what?
Dishes like kofta, kebab, stuffed duck.
Stuffed duck.
Yeah, the real deal.
Okay, now I'm getting hungry. But before we totally shift gears to food, we can't forget about Sharm El Sheikh after dark.
The nightlife.
Right. Those sources made it sound pretty vibrant. Nama Bay seems to be the place to be.
Nama Bay, that's the heart of the action.
Like all the action.
Shisha bars, clubs. They even have a Hard Rock Cafe there.
No way.
Yeah, if you're into that kind of thing. But for something a little more, I don't know, a little more chill, there's Soho Square.
Soho Square. Okay, what's that like?
More upscale, shopping, dining. They even have, get this, an ice bar.
An ice bar.
Yeah, an ice bar.
I've always wanted to try one of those. Okay, so Soho Square, noted. Plus, It might be good if you actually need, like, reliable Wi-Fi.
Oh, good point. Speaking of,
Mm,
one traveler mentioned that a lot of places in Nama Bay, no Wi-Fi.
really?
Yeah, everyone's on their phones, but they're all just using WhatsApp.
So it's like you're connected but not really connected.
It's those little quirks, you know?
It's the little things that make a place unique.
Absolutely. But hey, before we get too caught up in the modern stuff, we got to talk about something a bit more, spiritual.
Oh, right.
Mount Sinai, St. Catherine's Monastery. We can't talk about Sharm El Sheikh without mentioning those.
Absolutely not. It's not just a tourist spot, right? For a lot of people, this is a place of deep religious significance.
It is.
I can just picture myself hiking up Mount Sinai as the sun rises.
Like that blogger suggested.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then exploring that monastery.
I mean, Mount Sinai, its significance in, all the Abrahamic religions.
Yeah.
It's huge. This is where Moses is said to have received the Ten Commandments. You can't help but feel a sense of awe there.
No, you really can't. And the monastery itself, nestled right at the foot of the mountain.
Been standing there for centuries. Through all the conflict, all the change in that region, it's like a living piece of history.
It really is. And the stories it must hold within its walls.
Just as fascinating as those manuscripts they have there.
Speaking of, did you know that their manuscript collection is like the second largest in the world?
Second only to the Vatican. It's
I
incredible.
know, it's mind-blowing. But okay, before we get lost in ancient history, maybe we should get practical.
Good point. Got to plan the trip, right?
Exactly. What do our listeners need to know?
Well, for starters, best time to visit.
Yeah.
Spring or autumn. That's when you'll get the best weather.
Okay.
And the crowds won't be as crazy. Summers in Sharm El Sheikh, they can get brutally hot, like 50 degrees Celsius.
50 degrees.
50 degrees. Not ideal.
Okay, so spring or autumn it is, but what about getting around?
Well, public transport, it's a bit limited. Taxis are the way to go. Just make sure to agree on the price before you get in.
Okay, good tip.
And if you want the freedom to explore on your own, at your own pace, consider renting a car.
I was thinking that.
Plus, you'll have that sweet, sweet AC.
Yeah, gotta have that AC and that heat. Okay, now for the big one, accommodations. Looks like there's something for every budget.
Oh, yeah. From those super luxurious resorts
Yeah,
to more, budget-friendly options.
right. Any specific areas we should highlight?
Well, Nama Bay is popular, obviously, super lively, close to the nightlife. If you're looking for a more chill vibe, Sharks Bay is a good bet.
Sharks Bay? Okay.
And for that authentic charm experience, really local, check out Sharm El Maya. It's the old town.
Got it. So Nama Bay for the party animals, Sharks Bay for relaxation, and the Old Town for, like, the culture vultures.
You got it.
Any other essential tips before we move on?
Don't forget the sunscreen.
Essential.
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
And remember, while they use Egyptian currency there,
Right.
U.S. dollars are widely accepted.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. And last but not least, bargaining is expected in the markets.
Oh, yeah. Got to brush up on my haggling skills.
Exactly. Have fun with it.
Okay, so we've covered the must-sees, the essential tips, a little bit of history and culture. Feeling inspired yet?
I know I am.
Me too. But before we wrap up this part of our Sharm El Sheikh deep dive, we got to talk about some hidden gems.
Yes, the off-the-beaten-path treasures.
Exactly. One source mentioned this place called the Colored Canyon. Apparently, it's like
A natural rock formation.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. Like something out of a movie.
Wow. See, I knew there was more to Sharm El Sheikh than just the beaches and reefs.
So much more.
And then for a truly local experience, we got to go back to that old market, right?
Can't miss it.
Imagine, just picture this, these vibrant alleyways.
Overflowing with stuff.
Yeah, full of traditional goods, the thrill of haggling with the vendors.
It's a whole other world compared to those fancy resorts.
Right. It's like stepping into the real heart of Sharm El Sheikh.
It is.
And while we're there, we got to grab some of that authentic Egyptian tea, right?
Can't forget the tea.
Okay, so diving, deserts, history, culture, even the food.
What more could you ask for?
I know. What else does Sharm El Sheikh have up its sleeve?
Well, we talked about the nightlife, but maybe we can, dig a little deeper into the different vibes.
Okay. Yeah, good idea.
Nama Bay, like we said, that's the place for high energy, right?
Shisha bars, clubs, the whole 9 yards.
And they even have a Hard Rock Cafe there, can you believe
I
it?
know. It's like you're in Egypt, but...
But there's a little slice of America.
Yeah, right.
If you need a break from all the, the exotic stuff.
Exactly. And then there's Soho Square, which is like the more...
Upscale scene, more laid back,
Mhm.
maybe nice bars, good restaurants, a little bit of everything.
And that ice bar, right?
Oh, yeah. Can't forget the ice bar.
And also potentially more reliable Wi-Fi.
Potentially. Because remember, some places in Nama Bay, no internet.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Everyone on their phones, but just for WhatsApp.
It's funny,
It's
right?
those little details that make a place,
Memorable.
memorable. Okay, but before we lose ourselves in the social scene of Sharm El Sheikh,
Yeah, let's not forget the other side of it.
right? Maybe we should shift gears to something a bit more contemplative.
A little more introspective, yeah.
Mount Sinai, St. Catherine's Monastery. We can't talk about Sharm El Sheikh without talking about those.
Absolutely not.
They're like essential to understanding the place.
They are.
I mean, imagine hiking to the top of Mount Sinai, the place where, Moses supposedly received the Ten Commandments.
It's powerful.
And then you come down and explore this monastery.
That's been there since, like, the 6th century A.D.
I know. It's seen so much history, so much change. It's a testament to, like, the endurance of faith,
It really is.
And those manuscripts, that collection they have.
Second only to the Vatican. It's amazing.
Amazing. Okay, but before we completely lose ourselves in the past,
We got to bring it back to the present.
yeah, we've covered a lot in this deep dive. I mean, underwater wonders, desert adventures, cultural immersion.
It's been a journey.
It has. And one thing that keeps coming up
Yeah.
is this idea of responsible travel.
Absolutely crucial.
It's about making sure our impact, on the environment, on the local culture.
It's a positive one.
Exactly. So how can our listeners make sure they're traveling responsibly in Sharm El Sheikh? What should they be looking for?
Well, when choosing where to stay, your hotel or resort, look for places that prioritize sustainability.
Sustainability, right.
A lot of them have started using eco-friendly practices, things like water conservation, renewable energy, even waste reduction program.
Oh, that's good to hear. It's about aligning your travel choices with your values.
Exactly.
But what about transportation? We talked about how public transport isn't great there, and most people use taxis. Are there any, like, eco-friendly options?
It's a good question. Options might be a bit limited, but you can ask about shared taxi services.
Hmm.
Or, if it's possible, it's not too far,
Yeah.
you can always walk or cycle within the resort areas.
Right, good point. And if you're renting a car,
Go for the fuel-efficient models.
smart. Even those small choices can add up, right?
Absolutely. It's all about minimizing your footprint. And when it comes to interacting with the local culture,
Yeah.
there are definitely some things to keep in mind.
Like what?
Dressing modestly, especially when visiting religious sites, that's important. Learning a few basic Arabic phrases like greetings, thank yous,
Yeah.
that can go a long way in showing respect,
Right. It's the little things.
And remember, bargaining in the markets is expected,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
but approach it with respect. It's a
Yeah.
cultural exchange, not about taking advantage.
Good point. It's all about approaching travel with humility and respect for the places we visit.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay. But before we get too deep into responsible travel.
We should probably touch on those hidden gems again,
Oh, right. The stuff that's off the beaten path.
like the colored canyon, remember?
Yeah, natural rock formations.
Stunning. Just goes to show there's so much more to Sharm El Sheikh than meets the eye.
That's for sure. And then, for a truly authentic experience, we gotta hit up the old market.
It's a must.
Those vibrant alleyways, all the traditional goods, the haggling.
It's a sensory overload in the best way possible.
I know. It's like a world away from those polished resorts,
It is. It's the real deal.
Then while we're there, we gotta try some of that local cuisine. The street food, those traditional dishes, that Egyptian tea.
Don't hold back.
Speaking of adventures, those Sinai desert safaris. Whether you choose a dune buggy or a camel.
There's a desert experience waiting for everyone.
I know. Imagine, just picture yourself on a camel, slowly making your way across the sand as the sun sets.
It's like a scene out of Lawrence of Arabia.
Right. It's the perfect way to connect with the desert, to experience it the way it's meant to be experienced. And those Bedouin guides, they can teach you so much.
They can. It's not just a ride. It's a cultural exchange.
Okay, but before we get lost in the desert, maybe we should bring our listeners back to civilization.
Back to the nightlife.
And nightlife.
Yeah.
Remember those two different vibes we talked about?
Nama Bay, the high-energy hub.
With all the shisha bars and clubs. And they even have a Hard Rock Cafe there.
I know, it's wild.
Yeah.
But for something a little more sophisticated, there's always Soho Square.
Right, with its mix of bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
And that ice bar, and maybe even some decent Wi-Fi.
Yeah, maybe. Because remember, in Nama Bay,
Not so much.
not so much. You might find everyone glued to their phones, but it's just WhatsApp.
Which is kind of refreshing in a way.
It is. In a world that's always connected, it's nice to disconnect for a bit.
Okay, but before we get too caught up in the social scene,
We should probably shift gears one last time.
to something a little more,
Reflective.
reflective, yeah. Mount Sinai, St. Catherine's Monastery. We can't talk about Sharm El Sheikh without talking about them.
Absolutely not. They're essential to the whole experience.
Imagine hiking up Mount Sinai.
The place where Moses is said to have received the Ten Commandments.
Exactly. And then you come down and explore this monastery that's been standing there for centuries.
Through thick and thin, through wars, through political upheaval, it's still there.
It's like a symbol of resilience.
It is.
And that library.
That incredible library, second only to the Vatican.
Okay, but before we totally lose ourselves in the past, maybe we should wrap up this part of our Sharm El Sheikh deep dive.
Good idea.
We've covered so much. I mean, from underwater adventures to desert expeditions.
From ancient history to modern nightlife.
Sharm El Sheikh really does seem to have something for everyone. But one thing that keeps coming back to me,
Something we can't forget.
right, is this idea of responsible travel.
It's so important. It's about making sure our impact on this incredible place is a positive one. We need to protect it for future generations.
Well said. So, how can our listeners ensure they're traveling responsibly in Sharm El Sheikh? What are some concrete steps they can take?
When choosing dive operators, look for those with a strong commitment to reef conservation. Ask about their practices, their certifications, read reviews from other divers.
Good tips. What about supporting the local economy?
Absolutely. Choose accommodations that employ locals, eat at locally owned restaurants, buy souvenirs from local artisans. Your money can make a real difference in the community.
And what about cultural sensitivity? Any tips there?
Dressing modestly, especially when visiting religious sites, is essential. Learning a few basic Arabic phrases goes a long way in showing respect. And when you're bargaining in the markets, remember to do it with a smile. It's a cultural exchange, not a battle.
Great advice. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into Sharm El Sheikh, I'm left with a sense of, a sense of possibility. This is a place that seems to offer a perfect blend of adventure, relaxation, and cultural immersion.
It really does. And it's a reminder that travel can be so much more than just ticking off destinations. It's about engaging with the world around us, expanding our horizons, and creating memories that will last a lifetime.
Beautifully put. But before we all book our tickets to Sharm El Sheikh, let's take a moment to gather our thoughts and prepare for the final leg of our deep dive. We'll be back soon to wrap things up and leave you with some final inspiration and tips to help you plan your own unforgettable journey to this Egyptian paradise. We're back, ready to keep exploring Sharm El Sheikh. Before we pause, we were talking about that balance,
Yeah.
between all the tourism and actually preserving the amazing stuff this place
The
has.
natural wonders, the cultural stuff.
Right, exactly. It's a tough one, but it seems like Sharm El Sheikh is really trying to get it right. I mean, from what we've read.
A lot of effort going into that, yeah. A few sources even pointed out some specific initiatives.
Oh, like what?
Well, take Ras Mohammed National Park, for instance.
Oh, yeah, Ras Mohammed. That's
Yeah.
got to be like a crown jewel for them, right?
Definitely. And I remember reading about, how they limit how many visitors can go there each day.
Makes sense to protect it. But then how do people actually get to see those dive sites? Like Shark and Yolanda Reefs.
It's a tricky balance. You want access, but not too much.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Well, a lot of the sources talked about responsible tourism operators,
Okay, so like,
the dive companies, the tour groups. Choosing the ones that actually care about the reef
yeah,
and do things sustainably, that makes a huge difference.
that's good to know. So it's not just about saying no to tourism, it's about doing it the right way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Educating divers about their impact, too.
It makes sense. And speaking of things that might not be around forever,
What are you thinking about?
the SS Thistlegorm shipwreck. That's got to be such a powerful thing to see.
It is. History meets nature, right?
Right, but knowing it might be gone in 40 years.
Makes it even more special, yeah.
Like, you got to see it now or you might miss it.
And that's why responsible tourism matters so much.
Yeah.
It's not just about us seeing it.
It's about making sure it's there for everyone who comes after, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, but switching gears a bit. Back to those desert adventures. We were talking about dune buggy.
Quad bikes.
Camel tracks. Which one are you leaning towards?
Honestly, those dune buggies sound like a blast, but there's just something about a camel trek,
Yeah, slow pace.
Yeah. Especially at sunset. Imagine that. I read that some of the treks you get to connect with Bedouin culture, too.
Oh, yeah, the guides. They're like experts on the desert.
More than just guides, right? They're sharing their way of life.
It's a whole other level of experience. And it reminds you, travel's not just about the places you see.
It's about the people you meet too, right?
Exactly. And how about that old market? Remember we were talking about
Oh
that?
yeah, the old market. That sounds like a whole other adventure.
Sensory overload.
Mm-hmm.
In a good way, of course. All those colors, the smells.
I can already picture myself trying to haggle for a rug or something.
Oh, definitely got to haggle.
And that Egyptian tea with the fruity twist. Can't wait to try that.
And the food. We got to talk about the food again. Going beyond the resort restaurants is key.
Kofta, kebab, stuffed duck.
Street food, too. Don't forget about the street food.
It's all about those authentic experiences, right? But before we go on to the next adventure,
Where are we headed?
back to this idea of responsible travel. We talked about it with diving, but it applies to everything we do in Sharm El Sheikh, doesn't it?
It really does. It's about, like, mindset, minimizing your impact on the environment, respecting the local culture.
So what can our listener do, like practically speaking?
When you're booking accommodations, look for places that are doing things sustainably.
Okay.
Water conservation, renewable energy, all that stuff.
And transportation. And I
Yeah.
know we talked about how public transport's not great, taxis are the main thing. Is there anything else we can do?
You can always ask about shared taxis.
Mm.
Or, if it's feasible, walk or bike within the resort areas.
If it's not a million degrees outside.
Right, exactly. And for rental cars, fuel-efficient models are the way to go.
Small choices can add up.
They really can. And when it comes to the local culture, some simple things can go a long way, like dressing modestly.
Especially at religious sites, right?
Yeah, definitely. And learning a few basic Arabic phrases
Yeah, that's a good idea.
shows respect. And remember, haggling in the markets, it's part of the fun, but keep it respectful.
It's a give and take, not a war.
Exactly. Travel should be about connection,
Yeah.
connecting with the place, the people.
So back to those hidden gems. We were talking about the Colored Canyon.
That natural wonder.
Right, showing that there's more to Sharm El Sheikh than just the beaches and roofs.
There's a whole other side to it.
And then there's that old market for that truly local experience.
The sights, the sounds, the smells.
Haggling, it's like stepping into a different world.
It is. It's a must-do.
And don't forget to try the food while you're there.
Embrace the street food, the traditional dishes, that Egyptian tea.
Speaking of adventures, we gotta circle back to those Sinai desert safaris one last time. Dune buggy or camel, it's a tough choice.
Each one offers a different perspective on the desert.
Right. With the dune buggy, you're covering more ground.
Speeding through.
But with
it.
the camel, it's like you're really taking it all in.
The details, the vastness, the quiet.
It's a different kind of thrill.
It is.
Okay, but before we get totally lost in the desert, let's bring our listener back to civilization.
Back to the nightlife.
The nightlife. Nama Bay, the high-energy hub. Soho Square, the more sophisticated spot.
And the funny little detail about Nama Bay.
No Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Everyone's on their phones, but it's just WhatsApp.
It's like a forced digital detox.
Kind of nice, actually.
It is, in a way. Okay, but before we get too caught up in the social whirl of Sharm El Sheikh.
We got to make time for something else.
Right. Something a bit more
Contemplative.
contemplative, yeah. Mount Sinai. St. Catherine's Monastery. Can't forget about those.
Places of such deep meaning.
Imagine hiking up Mount Sinai, the place where Moses supposedly received the 10 Commandments.
The pilgrimage for so many people.
And then exploring that monastery that's been standing there for centuries.
Through so much history.
It's a powerful reminder of, I don't know, the enduring power of faith, maybe.
Maybe. Or just the human capacity for resilience.
Right. And that library with all those ancient manuscripts.
A treasure trove of knowledge.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, but before we completely lose ourselves in the past, maybe we should bring our listener back to the present. We've explored so much in this deep dive.
We have underwater worlds, desert landscapes, bustling markets, ancient monasteries.
Sharm El Sheikh really does seem to offer an amazing diversity of experiences.
It does. Something for everyone.
But as we've discussed throughout this deep dive, it's so important to approach travel responsibly, to be mindful of our impact on the environment, to respect the local culture, to support sustainable practices.
It's about making choices that align with our values.
Well said. And as we wrap up this part of our Sharm El Sheikh deep dive, I'm left with a sense of, I don't know, a sense of inspiration. This is a destination that seems to offer a perfect blend of adventure, relaxation, and cultural immersion.
It does, doesn't it? It's a reminder that travel can be so much more than just ticking off destinations on a list. It's about engaging with the world around us, expanding our horizons, and creating memories that will last a lifetime.
Beautifully put. But before we all set off, on our own adventures, let's take a moment to gather our thoughts and prepare for the final leg of our Sharm El Sheikh deep dive. We'll be back soon to wrap things up and leave you with some final inspiration and tips to help you plan your own unforgettable journey to this Egyptian paradise. All right, welcome back to our Sharm El Sheikh deep dive. We've been on quite a journey, haven't we?
We have. From the reefs to the desert, from ancient times to the modern day, Sharm El Sheikh is a place of contrast.
It is. But now it's time to focus on you, the listener.
And your potential adventure in this amazing place.
Exactly. We've gathered so much info from those must-see spots to all those tips on responsible travel.
Hopefully we've given you everything you need to plan an unforgettable trip.
That's the goal. So let's recap some key things. First off, best time to go. Spring or autumn seem to be the winners.
Best weather, fewer crowds.
And remember, public transport, not so great. Taxis are the way to go, but
Always negotiate the price before you get in.
good advice. And where to stay? Well, that depends on what you're looking for, right?
Nama Bay for the party scene, Sharks Bay for chill vibes, or the Old Town for that authentic charm experience.
And speaking of authentic experiences, those hidden gems we talked about,
The Colored Canyon, the Old Market.
they really add another layer to Sharm El Sheikh beyond the usual tourist stuff.
It's a destination that rewards those who like to explore, to dig a little deeper.
And for adventure, well, those Sinai Desert safaris sound incredible.
Dune buggy or camel, the choice is yours.
You know, I can just picture myself on a camel, slowly crossing the desert as the sun sets.
It's an image that stays with you.
It does, and you get to learn about the Bedouin culture from the guides.
They're experts on the desert, its history, its traditions. It's a truly immersive experience.
And we can't forget about St. Catherine's Monastery. That place is like a step back in time.
So much history within those walls. And that library with all those ancient manuscripts.
It's a reminder that Sharm El Sheikh's story goes way beyond just tourism.
It's a place that's been shaped by centuries of history, by different cultures, by faith.
It makes you think, doesn't it? But as we plan our own trips to Sharm El Sheikh,
We have to remember something important.
responsible travel, we've talked about it a lot, but it's crucial.
But protecting this incredible place, making sure it's still there for future generations to enjoy.
So what can our listeners do specifically to travel responsibly in Sharm El Sheikh?
When choosing dive operators, pick the ones that are committed to reef conservation. Ask them about their practices, look for certifications, read reviews.
Makes sense. What about supporting the local community?
Choose accommodations that hire locals, eat at local restaurants, buy souvenirs from local artisans.
Putting your money where your values are.
Exactly. And when it comes to interacting with the local culture, dress modestly, especially at religious sites. Learn a few basic Arabic phrases, and when you're bargaining in the markets, do it respectfully.
It's all about showing respect for the place and its people.
That's what responsible travel is all about.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Sharm El Sheikh, remember, it's more than just beaches and resorts. Explore those hidden gems, embrace the local culture, and most importantly, travel responsibly.
Your Sharm El Sheikh adventure awaits. A chance to discover something new, connect with a different culture, and create memories that will last a lifetime.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Sharm El Sheikh. Until next time, happy travels.